Let's go.
Go!
Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about the Netflix original called Mother/Android. This movie is about a society that uses androids that look identical to humans. They are nannies, butlers, chefs, you name it. That was until the blitz happened. It was some kind of phenomenon or attack that messed up all the electronics and caused the androids to go AWOL and start attacking people. There was so many of these androids that it caused the world to plummet into an apocalyptic landscape. Let's take a look at how the androids took over, what's left of mankind, and how smart this AI really is. If you enjoy videos breaking down all different kinds of movies, subscribe for more content like this.
Oh shit!
The movie starts off with us finding out that Georgia is pregnant, but she's not sure if she wants to be with the father, Sam. Tonight they're going to a friend's house to hang out and have some drinks. A TV program is playing that says, since 1969, Raster Robotics has delivered cutting-edge AI. The host of the party tells the server to bring shots for everyone, but the server says, I'm sorry but your parents have put a restriction on shots served. But then the boy says, 10-2-6-6, and the robot server changes his tune and says, right away, and then goes off to get the drinks. This server is obviously an android, and 10266 must be some kind of override code or passcode. Georgia and her friend are in the bathroom talking about her relationship with Sam and her pregnancy, when suddenly a loud electronic white noise causes everyone to cover their ears and the cell phone screen starts going crazy. A moment later, they hear some loud noises and go downstairs to find the android is attacking a girl, holding her by the neck. The android proceeds to attack everyone and Sam protects his pregnant girlfriend. Eventually, someone manages to incapacitate the android with a baseball bat. They are all in disbelief that this could happen. One girl says it killed them. They're not supposed to be able to do that. They're programmed so they can't do that. When they pause for a moment, they can hear gunshots and screaming coming from outside. Turns out, a lot of people must have these androids because it looks like every house on the street is being torn up. The girl named Sarah then tries to use her cell phone to call for help and it explodes next to her head, killing her. We see a wide shot of the city in chaos. Then we cut to around 7 months later. We know this because Georgia is now 9 months pregnant. Her and Sam are staying in a tent in the woods, probably avoiding cities and heavily populated areas. A twig snaps outside and they investigate to see if it's an android. But Sam says it's just an animal and they go to bed. They pack up their tent the next morning and start walking. Georgia says they have 6 miles to cover before sundown, so they start chopping their way through the thick forest. They come to a road with a broken car, and an android that looks like it was burned and tied up as a warning. Georgia asks Sam if he is okay, and he replies, I'm always afraid they're going to shoot us. They arrive at a military outpost. The two approach slowly, and a man comes over the loudspeaker telling them to drop all their bags and asks if they have any weapons. Georgia says they have a machete and a revolver. And the man asks, what is the girl hiding under her shirt? To which she replies, I'm 9 months pregnant. They walk slowly toward the fenced-in area, and they put their weapons in lockup and they're welcomed inside. We later learn that they have a bunch of sensors around the camp to detect if someone is an android or not. Probably something like a metal detector. It's completely fenced in and has barbed wire and guards. There's people hanging out, playing basketball. Doesn't look like a bad place to stay. Georgia goes to the on-site doctor, and she says that Georgia should have the baby here, since she's already past due. But we learn that Sam's plan is to get to Boston before the baby is born. You have to be very quiet while traveling to avoid detection of the androids, and a baby would make that very difficult. They want to get to Boston because they heard that families with a baby 1 year or younger qualified to take a boat somewhere safe. The doctor says she has heard of that, and that's what everyone was doing a few months ago, but she hasn't heard anything in a few weeks. The doctor heard that they are only taking mothers and babies, no fathers. Apparently a food supply thing, but she will ask around. Sam is looking around the camp and finds a missing person board with pictures and notes all over it. He asks one of the soldiers if there's anyone going toward Boston and if he could hitch a ride. He explains Georgia and himself are trying to make it through no man's land. The soldier tells him nobody gets through no man's land, and Boston is a strong holdout because of the troops and EMPs. But it only takes one domino. An EMP is an electromagnetic pulse that disables electronics, aka androids. The thing is, once they detonate this one-time EMP, They will have no more defenses, and the androids will then be able to move in at will. So you kinda have to save it for one big event. Sam wonders if they're still shipping people out on boats, and the man seems offended that Sam would want to abandon his country. Sam replies he has a family to think about, and the soldier replies, "Who doesn't?" And I mean, that's a fair point. While George is down by the water, there's a man begging to get into the camp, but the soldiers are telling him to back off because he keeps setting off their machines. The pleading man says he had a hip replacement, that's all, and they can cut him open to see that he's human, but they shoot him instead, not willing to take the risk. Was he truly just an elderly man with a hip replacement? Or was he an android trying to trick them? At first it might seem like the soldiers are quite brutal, but we'll soon learn these androids can be quite crafty, and their suspicion was probably well warranted. It's possible they've even encountered an android trying to pull this same trick before. That night we see a bunch of soldiers around a campfire, and one of them is branded with a symbol. Must be some kind of initiation into this group. Sam approaches them and once again asks for a ride to Boston. The leader of the group says he can get him a ride pretty close to where he's going, but he has to fight him first. He says, "If you can lay me out on my back, you'll get your ride." Sam tries to walk away, but they continue to egg him on, so he decides to fight. The camera cuts before we get to see how he does though. The next morning his girlfriend is woken up by the soldiers. Uh-oh. Well, it turns out Sam busted the guy's skull open and he's blind in one eye. So I guess Sam is a pretty good fighter. And the thing is, he did all that for a ride to Boston, and now they're being kicked out of the military camp. The man in charge says, "I can't have two people that don't want to enlist beating up my guys." He then tells them they're no longer welcome and they have 2 minutes to leave. Georgia tries to plead with the man, explaining she's 9 months pregnant, but he doesn't care. Luckily, the doctor gives Georgia some painkillers and other medical supplies in case she gives birth on the way. Now, because of Sam, they're forced to walk alone through no man's land. Georgia is rightfully mad at Sam for getting them kicked out of the base that had a doctor for the baby. But the one thing that frustrates me is that Sam never just explains exactly what happened. Does that drive anyone else crazy in movies when they can't just tell other people what happened? They have to be all cryptic and just let other people think whatever they want for some reason? Anyway, they start their journey that night and get caught in a rainstorm. They are freezing cold and forced to sleep outside. Sam says he will start a fire when the rain dies down, but Georgia says no, we're too close to no man's land. So similar to some zombie movies or vampire movies, a fire will attract the androids. The next day, they are lucky enough to find an abandoned house to stay in. They also find a Polaroid camera with one photo left, and they want to save it for when the baby's born. Well, it had 2 photos left, but Sam accidentally took a picture of his face when he picked it up. That night, they start planning their extremely dangerous trip to Boston. From what they have heard, it's completely surrounded by androids, so their safest bet would be to go north and then get a boat down into Boston. But that could take them up to 2 weeks, and the baby will be born any time now, so they need to hurry. Their second option? Cut straight through no man's land. This would only take a few days, but there's no checkpoints, possibly no humans at all, and a lot of androids. Not to mention, if she goes into labor in no man's land, that's basically a death sentence. You can see on the map, they've circled the locations that still have EMPs. The EMPs emit a signal even before they're detonated, and this signal keeps the androids at a distance. The next day, Georgia wakes up and finds Sam fixing a dirt bike he found on the property, and he's made a decision. He wants to cut straight through. He knows it will be dangerous, but he's more afraid of having to travel with a baby, so they head off on the dirt bike. The positive is they can move so fast, they can make the trip in 1 day. The downside is the sound of the bike will be an android magnet. The trip is going well so far, and they're making great time, so they stop for a break. Georgia is soaking her feet in the water when she hears a twig snap. At first, she thinks it's just an animal, but as she focuses in, she can see it's a person. She whispers to Sam and they immediately jump on the bike and speed away. They lose the first android, but more start coming out of the woods, some shooting guns. There's even multiple drones that begin to fly through the woods chasing them down. These drones must have been run by the same technology as the androids, so they've gone rogue too. Sam is doing his best, but they are now being chased by multiple androids and drones. The androids are much faster than humans and don't tire out. Georgia realizes they can't outrun them. Sam knows the only way to save his girlfriend and unborn child is to let her off and try to distract the androids for as long as possible. So that's what he does. While Georgia is hiding, we hear the androids capture Sam. Suddenly, there's a man right in front of Georgia, and she is frozen in fear. Thankfully, the man speaks and tells her to be quiet and points to an android right above her. The android goes away and he tells her to come with him if she wants to live. He brings her back to his safe house, which is some kind of metal bunker filled with scientific equipment. We find out his name is Arthur, and he was an AI programmer that worked for the company that made the androids, Raster Robotics. That's why he's still alive, because he understands how they think. He says, "They will use our programming against us and kill us all." Georgia replies, "We aren't robots. They can't hack us." But Arthur says, "Love. That's what will be humanity's downfall. Androids will sacrifice themselves and anyone else to get closer to their goal. They can reason past love and emotion."
It ends with our extinction. We knew it was coming the second we gave it a name.
Arthur then asks if he can feel her baby. It's a bit creepy at first, but then he starts crying. I mean, the guy does seem a little weird, but he's been living alone out in no man's land for God knows how long. That would probably drive anyone a little crazy. He composes himself and apologizes for breaking down, and tells Georgia that he can get her to Boston safely, using this. It looks like some kind of shirt, with weird stuff all over it. About 8 years ago, his company started developing camouflage algorithms for their complex in Europe. Androids see UV, heat sensors, night vision. But this algorithm creates a mask for all that. It makes you invisible to the eye, but androids can still hear and smell you. So it's not perfect, but I mean, hey, you're invisible. Arthur also says the androids know this tech, so they look for it. Georgia still wants to try and save Sam before she goes to Boston, even though Arthur has continuously advised her not to. Finally, he reluctantly agrees to help her rescue Sam from the androids. Arthur takes Georgia to one of the android bases. They have a building where they organize patrols and capture humans and use them as bait. It's possible they might torture people for the locations of outposts as well. One android is shown being able to fix a car by plugging himself into it. Before going into the building, Arthur gives Georgia his other vest to use for Sam. Once she rescues him, it's only 4 miles from here to the edge of no man's land. He says once the androids detect a signal from the EMP, they won't go any further. Arthur can't go with her since she has to take the other vest for Sam. She hesitantly approaches the building, full of androids. And surprisingly, the vest is working. She is able to walk right past the androids and they don't notice. Georgia makes her way through the building quietly, because like Arthur said, they can still hear and smell you. And I'm sure they would have better senses than a normal human. Suddenly, while walking through the building, one of them stops and looks right at her. Luckily, they just walk past. We get to see this one android missing half her face, and she looks pretty creepy. I would not want that thing chasing me. She eventually finds Sam locked upstairs with another prisoner. An android hears them talking and enters the room, walks over to Sam, and stomps on his leg several times, breaking it badly, then leaves. Georgia throws the extra camouflage on Sam and begins helping him walk. They leave the other guy to die because he won't shut the hell up. So then he starts yelling, causing all the androids to come running. They manage to get outside, but when they fall, the androids attack them. It must be because they heard them. Thank God Arthur decided to stick around and risk his life to save them. Again, he fights off the androids and gets both Sam and Georgia into a truck and drives away. As they are driving, Georgia is going into labor, and the screen cuts to black. Both George and Sam wake up in the Boston hospital. Arthur must have taken them the rest of the way. They had to amputate Sam's lower leg because it was broken too badly, but their baby was born healthy. Even better news, they're still accepting families to go to the safe place, which apparently is in Korea, according to Sam. They finally used that camera they found to take their family photo. Could you imagine how special a photo like that would be at the end of the world? Later, a man comes in to interview Georgia about how they got here and how they met Arthur. They have to be very careful with everyone they let in, because like the soldier said earlier, one domino and everything can fall. Georgia begins to explain how they got here and that Sam was taken by the androids, but Arthur helped her get him back. The man is extremely confused why they didn't just kill Sam, and how she was able to walk into this building and get him back. That's when she begins to explain Arthur was a programmer for Raster Robotics, and he built a camouflage that hides you from the androids, makes you invisible. As she's explaining this, the man just stares at her in confusion and says, "That technology doesn't exist. Don't you think we would be using it if it did?" This is when Georgia has the worst epiphany. Arthur was an android. They were literally playing 5D chess. And just like he said, they have strategy like he wouldn't believe. Pretending to save her, giving her the fake camouflage, then gaining her trust by helping her save Sam, and have all the other androids play along like she was invisible? Crazy. It was all a trick so that Georgia would lead Arthur right into Boston. This would allow the androids to disable the EMP from inside and launch a massive attack. Georgia realizes the mistake she made and tells the man. That's when they go to look at Arthur's bed and find the nurse dead. Just as this happens, gunshots start going off and the whole place is sent into a panic. Georgia realizes that Arthur will try to disable the EMP and tries to get there first. She does manage to get there first and put Arthur down with several shots to the head. These androids seem extremely hard to kill. Before she shot Arthur, he started to cry and say the exact same things he said in the bunker. Then, he changes his expression immediately. He explains they were given the ability to emote to make humans more comfortable. This confirms that everything he was saying and doing earlier was just a manipulation. It's also interesting that he said that love would be their downfall, and when it came to Georgia, that couldn't be more true. Everything is fine for the moment, but then a bunch more androids show up and she has to lock herself in the room with the EMP. Well, not a room, but a fenced-in area. Trapped in with her newborn baby and the androids about to break in, she has no choice but to use the EMP. This disables all the androids in the area, saving them for now. But with the only deterrent gone, all the other androids will be moving in to attack. We see in the background there's gunshots, explosions, and buildings on fire. Boston won't last much longer. Thankfully, they find the boat heading to Korea. They arrive just in time because the boat was getting ready to set sail. But they receive some bad news. They thought that the boat was only taking mothers and children. Turns out, they're only taking children. The official on the boat explains, you will be more people to feed. You will need a house, medical care. Babies are much easier to accommodate. And I mean, that's a pretty fair point. Especially when Sam is missing half of his leg and looks like he's about to die. Georgia and Sam reluctantly give up their baby knowing that it's what's best. We actually get to see a little glimpse into the future of their child growing up safely in Korea. Then, we cut back to Georgia, who is now all alone. Sam must have had complications with his amputation, because we don't see him again. Georgia is sitting by a fire, looking at some of the pictures she has. She burns the one Sam took by accident and most of the other stuff. She decides to keep the family photo they took together. The soldiers from Boston are gathering up as many people as they can and setting up a new outpost in Portland. Georgia agrees to go, and the last thing we see is her getting in the truck. That's my video on the movie Mother/Android. I don't know why this movie got such low ratings because I thought it was pretty good. I'm convinced if this came out in 2007, people would have thought it was amazing. I especially like the twist that Arthur was actually an android. Rewatching the movie, you can start to see some clues like how he moved his head and the way he would say certain things. But like I said before, you can't put your finger on it in the moment, because somebody who is locked out in no man's land alone would go crazy. The scene where he shoots all the androids really proved his point though. The androids are willing to sacrifice themselves and others to get to their goal. One mystery the movie doesn't answer is what was the blitz? Was it a glitch? A malfunction? An attack by another nation? Or was it the AI itself trying to take control, like a Skynet situation? The creation rising up to destroy its creators. I would think if it was a malfunction, they would not be so organized and efficient. That's what makes me think it was not some kind of malfunction, but planned all along. Whatever the blitz was, it was specifically designed to overwrite the programming that prevented them from killing humans. This movie's not perfect by any means, but the story is simple and effective. Get to Boston, save the baby. The action is intense and the androids really feel dangerous and almost scary at times. It's definitely more of a thriller than an action, but not full-out horror. Let me know if you enjoyed this movie. The ratings aren't the best, but honestly I enjoyed watching it. It didn't feel like I wasted my time by any means. If there's any other movies you want me to cover, please leave them in the comments down below. I always read through them. I have a few ideas, but I'm always open to suggestions. If you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't. It helps out a lot and I really appreciate it. Shout out to my members on the main channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.